Hello my friends and welcome to Bob Anime and Games the Disney Agent Zone. So, last month I mentioned I was going to review a couple of things in the upcoming months. The first being one of my favorite long-running serials of all time, Precure.
Really, the more I look at it, the more I realize that in terms of just characters and storytelling, Precure is probably Toei's most consistently well-written series. Not to say I dislike their tokusatsu works, in fact some of my favorite shows come from them, but recently they've been hitting a few bumps here and there. Please stay good. As for their animation division, well, Digimon was good in the past, and Dragon Ball is still pretty darn good, despite some awful opening and ending themes. Seriously, somebody called Jam Project Stat.
But more often than not, I do find myself rather invested in the adventures of these magical girls who transform thanks to their teddy bears. Don't laugh, Mofurun is awesome.
Still, that's not to say Precure has a perfect track record either. In fact, today's subject was a series meant to pull the franchise out of the gutter after a certain sequel season proved to be even less successful than Digimon 02. Today, we're talking about the franchise's fourth incarnation, Fresh Precure. And yes, eventually I will do retrospectives on the other incarnations, but as the title suggests, this series was meant to be a fresh start for the franchise, introducing a lot of new story elements that would see application for many seasons to come. Besides, by talking about this, I can then review something that I've been dying to talk about for a while now.
But first, let's talk about the anime that helped reinvigorate both Precure and the magical girl genre as a whole, Fresh Precure. For this and future Precure reviews, I am going to summarize most of the episodes, so do take note, a lot of spoilers. If you're at all interested in this series and haven't seen it for yourself yet, I do recommend stopping here and checking it out. Otherwise, let's get right into the first three episodes that introduce the team. Our series opens with Owl piggybacking a bear while holding a staff of ice cream. Jesus Christ, anime, we're not even 1 minute in. Hold back a tad bit. At least ease us in with something like exploding penguins or something more normal.
Anyway, Kaipora Gaibora's more senile cousin awakens the transformation trinkets of the season, flying keys.
No birds, they're keys.
After the opening, we cut over to our main heroine, balling up like a kid who didn't get her lollipop. Yes, this is our heroine, everyone, Love Momozono, consulting with her friends about a recent incident. Apparently she's crying because Senpai didn't notice her friend who she was trying to hook him up with. Now, I do realize this is meant to be an introduction to Love and her selfless nature, but I can't help but feel she's being a tad bit too pushy in this scene. I mean, yeah, later in the episode, the two hook up after the senpai admits that he always had feelings towards Love's friend, and was just too embarrassed to admit it. But before that, he said he was in love with someone else, and yet Love still tried to push a relationship between the two. You know, Love, sometimes there's a very thin line between selfless and busybody. Learn where it is. Anyway, after parting ways with her friends, Love gets lost on her way to her favorite donut stand and stumbles upon a mysterious mansion.
Hello?
There she meets her future waifu, a mysterious fortune teller, and said fortune teller predicts that great happiness would befall her soon, and Love smiles so much that her mouth grows to over half her face, even going beyond the borders a little.
Geez, smiling like that must really hurt your jaw.
This is the worst day of my life.
However, what the fortune teller had actually predicted was that Love might become in opposition to her and her master's goals. For you see, she was part of an invading force who were seeking something called the Infinity. No, that's an Infinity Stone. Though, it would be 7 kinds of awesome to see the Precure cross over into the Marvel Universe. It would certainly make that Avengers anime a lot more watchable. Later, after getting home, Love's mother gives her a concert ticket for her favorite dance group, Trinity.
Love would later join that group in their efforts to combat the Invis with their fruit slicing belts. Wait. sorry, wrong toy production with a bunch of fruit motifs.
No, actually, Love is a fan of dancing, and especially the moves of Trinity Center Miyuki Chinen, whom she hopes to one day emulate by forming her own dance group. However, the concert is quickly crashed by the fortune teller, who we learn is named Ise. She throws a diamond-shaped object into a speaker, transforming it into the first monster of the week, the Nake Wameke. Yeah, funny fact, Precure MOTWs have names that are homonyms for stock phrases that they keep saying as though they were frickin' Pokemon or something. In this case, Nake Wameke can mean to cry and shout, which is what they want their victims to do. Ise's group believes that by collecting enough sorrow from their victims, they'll be able to expose the location of the ability. However, after seeing everyone in danger, especially her idol, Love jumps into action to try and help. Seeing her courage, one of the flying keys from earlier fuses with Love's cell phone, creating the transformation device of the season, the Link Rune. And thus, we get our first transformation of the season.
もぎたてフレッシュキュアピーチレッツプリキュア
She makes quick work of the Nake Wameke, purifying it with a very unimpressive finisher. Yeah, until they get their actual weapons later in the season, get used to the Precure using these really lame attacks, which is just them clapping and chanting a Japanese nursery rhyme that's supposed to make boo-boos go away.
痛いの痛いの飛んでけ
Probably the only time this attack actually looked remotely impressive is when they actually have a movie's budget behind them, but that's a story for another day. Anyway, the next episode focuses on introducing the second cure plus the mascots of the season. The baby bear thing from earlier, Chiffon, who has powerful psychic abilities that seem to be linked to the Precure, and Tart, talking ferret, which pretty much seems like the go-to animal for magical girls and boys alike. Also, he speaks with a Kansai accent. Why? Because Carol-chan did it? Yeah, I guess sometimes we all have to conform to certain stereotypes.
But you can just say, darn pleased to meet ya.
But even in Osaka,
Go on.
darn pleased to meet you, yo.
Well, anyway, they go more into detail about the enemy they're facing. Ise's group comes from a parallel world known as Labyrinth, and their leader Mobius seeks to gain control over every parallel world.
Oh no! They're gonna fill every world with horribly green screened in Muppets!
Anyway, as I said, this episode also focuses on introducing the second cure, Miki Ano. Huh, a magical girl dressed in white and blue, voiced by Eri Kitamura, named Miki. Why does that sound so familiar? Anyway, Miki has aspirations to become a top fashion model. That's next season. And she also has a younger brother named Kazuki, who she lets everyone think is her boyfriend.
Japan, the country where they casually throw in concepts like incest into their children's anime.
So anyway, while on a date with her brother, they end up getting attacked by yet another one of Ise's Nake Wameke, this time a monster vending machine. By any chance, did Stephen King write this episode? Anyway, her determination to protect her little brother invites the second flying key to infect her phone and lets her transform.
積み立てフレッシュキュアベリー
Somehow, Love instantly recognizes her friend. Seriously, did she recognize her by her exposed midriff or something? And the two defeat the Stephen King monster. Afterwards, Love invites Miki to join in some dance lessons being taught by Miyuki, who, after the events of the previous episode, was repaying Love for trying to protect her. Still, they were one member short of creating a dance unit like Trinity. I wonder who they could get. Yeah, early in the episode, Love invited her other friend, Inori Yamabuki, to join her group, but she ended up turning Love down due to her own low self-esteem. The third episode obviously focused on Inori joining the two, but also saw the introduction of yet another important side character, Kaoru-chan, the owner of Love's favorite donut stand. This guy is awesome, but we'll get more into him later. Nonetheless, he helps encourage Inori to have more confidence in herself, and not to be afraid of taking chances if there's something she really wants to do. Later, while playing with a dog that had recently been treated by her family's pet hospital, she of course encounters Ise, but rather than transforming an inanimate object into a monster, she instead goes for the dog. While it ends up being one of the stronger monsters of the week, it also proves to be a big mistake as it results in Inori getting her Link Rune and becoming...
取れたて フレッシュキュアファイン
Together, the three pull off a triple Precure kick and rescue the cute little doggy. And having gained some confidence over the course of the bout, Inori officially joins both Love's dance group and the Fresh Precure.
So, Fresh Precure starts off on a bit of a sour note. It wasn't bad, just messy in a few areas.
I think the biggest problem was the pacing throughout these first 3 episodes. We're not given a whole lot of time to really get to know Love or Miki. We mostly just hear how great they are from others. And some of the stuff we do see them doing is a little morally questionable, to say the least. Love tries to force 2 people into a relationship, and Miki imagines scenarios where she could use her superheroism as a means of garnering fame.
Again, why does Miki remind me of someone?
Hell, even the villains got better development, with these actually having an intriguing little scene where just being around happy people frustrated her to the point of creating a monster of the week. More on that later. Inori, however, comes off much better than her teammates. Throughout all 3 episodes, she comes off as supportive without being pushy and very relatable with her anxiety over joining Love's dance group. It should probably come as no surprise that she became the second most popular Cure of the season. Still, we've got a lot more episodes ahead, and things will mostly go uphill from here. Mostly, we'll talk about that next time. Going into episodes 4 and 5, we're formally introduced to the next member of the Labyrinth trio, Westar. He's pretty much the very definition of dumb muscle, usually not planning anything ahead, and just making a monster of the week out of anything that looks relatively strong to him.
And honestly, I love the dude. He's just so hilariously over the top. His hamminess alone made me forget that these 3 guys from Love School were in episode 5.
Yeah, we'll see them more later, but ultimately, they're just forgettable side characters who try to date all 3 of our heroines.
私男の人は男の人同士で女の子は女の子同士で恋愛すべきだと思うの
Moving into episode 6, we're introduced to the third and easily most dangerous agent of Labyrinth in the earlier parts of this anime, Solar. For his first MOTW, he chooses a blackboard of all things. At first, you might not think that much of something that at worst could cause allergies to act up, until you realize this silly looking monster can erase anything from existence. He starts off with little things like hamburgers, but then moves on to more important things like 3DS's.
The bastard! I bet he's also one of the guys responsible for the AS Classic shortage. I mean, I don't know how he'll be able to top this.
本当に大切なもの、それは。
ねえお母さん
Oh, by erasing every mother in town. Okay, that got dark.
I mean, God, had the Precure not defeated this MOTW, we'd have one of the highest kill counts in a toy production, let alone a Precure series. I mean, good on the writers for creating a great near tragedy in which Love almost lost her mother after a pay argument, but jeez, that got heavy. Let's move on. So the following episode sees Ys implement a new strategy to defeat the Precure. Since she's already acquainted with Love, she believes that by befriending her, she'd eventually be able to get in close enough and steal her Link Rune, thereby depowering one of her more significant threats. She takes on the alias of Setsune Higashi, and it's actually a really decent plan, especially since along the way, she even learns Barry and Pine's civilian identities. Though she remains focused on stealing Love's Link Rune, I'm guessing because she is the leader of the team.
But later on, there might have been other reasons, but let's save waifu talk for next time.
Anyway, while she's unable to steal Love's Link Rune due to an unplanned attack by Westar, she does become close friends with her, even winning a clover pendant together, which she keeps as a symbol of their friendship. Following this, we get an episode where finally the Precure start getting decent finishers. Having run out of a special baby food for Chiffon that came out of the Link Rune,
Damn you in-app purchases!
the Precure tried to recreate the baby food on their own to satisfy Chiffon, who's being a little brat. Yeah, I'm not a big Chiffon fan, but still, the Precure tried their best to recreate her special baby food, all the while looking like a bunch of fools in the process.
Cause it would be a Toys Children show if they didn't demean their protagonists on a regular basis.
However, just as they're about to get the final ingredient, Westar shows up with an MOTW, and surprisingly, he creates a pretty strong one, even though his track record up until now has been the worst of the villain trio. During the fight, Chiffon recognizes Love's efforts at recreating her favorite food, and finally stops being a brat and just drinks the regular baby formula she made earlier in the episode. As a result, Love completes her social link with Shiphone and unlocks a new weapon, the Cure Stick. With the power of an actual finisher, they defeat the monster, and every father in Japan cried out in sorrow as they now had to buy their daughters some new toys. Oh, how I pray for their poor souls. Anyway, the next episode is mostly just a filler episode where Miki attends an audition to become an international fashion model, only to predictably ditch it in favor of remaining in Japan as a superheroine. And yet, we see no fallout from her ditching such an important audition. Okay, it's good that they presented Miki as a dedicated heroine and everything, but I still think this plotline was later done a lot better in Princess Precure, where Kya did something similar and suffered actual repercussions for unprofessional conduct. Though we still did learn a few important things in this episode. One, that Kawa-chan was a former F1 champion.
Did I ever tell you about the time I was a race driver?
And a little more about Labyrinth. As it turns out, it's not a Muppet-filled kingdom ruled over by David Bowie, but rather a society where Mobius decides every aspect of his people's lives, including the death rate.
Again, this anime just casually goes into dark areas sometimes.
Rolling right into the next episode, Solar again proves to be the most competent of the villains by creating a slot machine monster that switches human minds with animals, including switching Inori with Tart. This would lead to the first and thankfully last time a male voice actor would perform a Precure transformation. They don't count! Yeah, this episode was mostly meant to conclude a subplot where Inori finally overcomes her unexplained fear of ferrets, despite the fact she likely has seen many similar animals on a daily basis come into her family's pet hospital. The next episode focuses on giving some much needed character development to Miyuki. Having shown up late one too many times due to Precure duties, Miyuki cancels her dance lessons with the girls out of frustration. It's here that we also get to see how devious Ys can be when she swoops in as Love's supposed friend, and tries to lower her morale by telling her to break her ties with Miyuki through a false fortune reading. As a villain, I really like Ys in these early episodes, using her silver tongue more than anything else.
Really, I kinda wish a certain despair-obsessed chick had used similar tactics. I mean, just imagine if she had used something like, say, a magical mind control video that instantly turns people evil, thereby kind of undermining the entire series and its themes. Just imagine if they had done something like that. That'd just be stupid.
Still, despite this, the Precure tried to sneak into the recording studio to apologize to Miyuki.
No, you're supposed to use cardboard boxes! Amateurs!
Obviously it doesn't work, but later Love sees an interview where Miyuki talks about her and her belief that Love can become a great dancer. I really like Miyuki as a side character. She feels like one of the most realistic characters in this anime. Her lashing out at the Precure was a little much, but it figures that giving private dance lessons and working as a professional artist would eventually lead to some stress. So just the fact that she was willing to let bygones be bygones and make amends with them really shows that Miyuki is a good person in the end. Maybe even worthy of a certain title. The next episode is some more goofy filler, this time involving wigs for dogs.
I mean, come on! How could such a ridiculous concept exist anywhere outside the realm of anime? Anyway, this is a real thing. You know, sometimes I think we abuse our privileges as a first world country.
Still, this is a pretty funny episode with some not so subtle references to seasons past, and good animation for an episode about dog wigs. Seriously, what? Moving on. The next episode sees Pine get her new finisher. In her case, she bonds with Shiphone through her attempts at helping her through a sudden illness, which turns out to be constipation, which she fixes through a very hands-on approach.
That's just gross.
Anyway, even though her cure stick is essentially the same as Peach's, just with a different head, she uses it as a flute. Okay, it kinda makes sense, as it does sort of look like an ocarina, and I'm sure it won't get any more ridiculous than this. Following this, the Precure learned that there's a fourth flying key named Ocarun, which of course means there's a potential fourth Precure. Wow, what a surprise. It's not as though we saw Ocarun in the first episode, or see a four-leaf clover in the opening every episode that would indicate that there perhaps might be another member. They go out looking for Ocarun through some admittedly hilarious vignettes, including Inori using her flying key to hear the thoughts of some rather rude animals, and Love fighting a cat. You know, the Japanese fandom often refers to love as Cure Aniki. This might be part of the reason why. Eventually, they do find Akurun, who seems to go towards Karutan. I wouldn't be against it. No, actually, Akurun goes towards Miyuki, which, after the previous episode, she has shown to be a good candidate, being a good-willed and well-rounded person.
きっとお前たち3人と関係の深い人間が4人目と睨んでいた。
And that pretty much confirms that Miyuki is just a red herring. Kind of literally in this case.
今時そんなまんまな人はいませんものね。
The agents of Labyrinth then have a good fight with the Precure, which has me asking why do they even bother with MOTWs if they're this strong on their own? Did they just have like a limited fight clause in their contracts or something?
じゃああとは任せたわよ。
They are able to get the upper hand on the baddies, but during the fight, Akurun flies away, not forming a path with anyone. Again, it's obviously not Miyuki, but then who could be the fourth? Well, anyway, the next episode is about...
ごめん、実はこの後予定があるんだ。なんの？刹那とデートなんだ。
Okay, I don't even have to make lesbian jokes. This anime does it for me.
Obviously though, Isa's true intentions are to steal Love's Link Rune when her guard is down, though her chances at getting her alone to steal it are quickly dashed when the other Precure join in. She does almost steal all three, but even that's messed up when Shifon makes an unintentional save. Oh, and when the girls try to explain why the plushie has ESP, Inori ends up making, This is why quality checks are important, my friends. Meanwhile, Solar creates a parrot Nakewameke whose feathers force people to speak their inner thoughts. Little late there, Solar, there's already a noisy bird out there that makes people spill their inner thoughts. Along the way, Tweety also gets Miki and Nori to expose their distrust towards Ise, and in turn, Ise is able to take advantage of the situation and is able to be alone with Love, who gets hit by a stray feather, and...
よかった。刹那が許してくれた。いい子だな、刹那って。
Hey, you two should kiss!
Nevertheless, she's almost able to steal the Link Rune, only to be foiled thanks to some convenient anti-evil protection. Kinda wish the Fives Gears had that feature. The Precure defeat Tweety, and somehow all of the victims are able to make up. Okay, now I know that thing is a poor imitation of Twitter if it lets conversations end peacefully. Following this, we have yet another mostly filler episode focusing on Love's class making a haunted house for the cultural festival. She runs into conflict with one of the boys from episode 5, who, as I said before, is about as interesting as Paste. The big takeaway from this episode was the fact that Miki was depressed that she still hadn't gotten her weapon yet, and only has her lame-ass little finisher that can't even kill MOTWs anymore. Thus leading into the next episode where she attempts to bond with Shifon in the hope she'll get her cure stick. It's not easy for Miki as she connects with toddlers about as well as Dora the Explorer, and she also has to hide Shifon from her mother, who starts thinking her daughter has a baby, wait.
Did this children's anime just offhandedly suggest teen pregnancy? No, I'm sure I'm overthinking it. I mean, it's not as though they have any other adult theme. What the hell's on that poster?
You know, for kids!
Anyway, Miki continues being a terrible parent, constantly coddling Shifon until eventually driving her away when Miki wasn't looking. Coincidentally, as Shifon was floating away, Miki's mother ended up reminding her of a time when she got lost and her mother had to find her. While looking for her, Miki got the idea that Shifon was going through the same emotions she was back then. Except for the fact that in your case you got lost while Shifon just left you and your poor parenting of her own accord. Miki eventually finds Shifon with Love and Inori, hugs her after yelling at her, and gets her weapon upgrade. Yeah, I don't completely approve of this. It just doesn't feel like Miki earned this since for most of the episode she was trying to take advantage of the toddler in order to get a power-up. Shifon had every right to want to run away from Miki. Compare this against Inori and Love's episodes where they selflessly tried to help Shifon. They weren't seeking any compensation, they were just concerned with her well-being. Yeah, Miki apologizes for being a bad parent and everything, but not for trying to take advantage of her. I don't know, I just think this episode could have been handled a lot better. But anyway, Miki gets her variation on the cure stick, which is...
Cure stick! Ready, sword!
Oh come on, that is not a sword!
A sword would be something like what Saya... Wait. Blue? Eri Kitamura. A sword. Ah, I see what you did there, Butcher. Clever. Actually, very clever. Now, if only you could do something about the rebellion story.
The last episode we'll take a look at for today is technically filler, but it's still a very important episode in my opinion. While picking up Kazuki from the hospital after a brief fainting spell, the Precure meet a young sick girl named Chika. She's just about to have a surgery of some sort, but wants to meet the Precure beforehand for encouragement. So the girls make a little card for her and wave at her right before she goes into the operating room, and yeah, you've probably heard this story 1,000 times already. But there's a reason why. Superheroes like the Precure have lasting appeal because they encourage certain morals that, unfortunately, we don't see enough of every day. Yeah, defeating the bad guys is one thing, but sometimes acting as a symbol of hope can be even more important. Encouraging a younger generation to remain strong in the face of adversity is something every hero should strive for. Having a little episode like this is a good reminder of that ideal and everything heroes like the Precure stand for.
So those were the first 18 episodes of Fresh Precure, and while it did have a few problems like with character development and maybe 1-2 main filler episodes, I still think it was a solid first act.
I especially admired how they incorporated some really dark moments to up the stakes and the drama, but remained fun and light enough that it never felt depressive or mean-spirited, especially considering the target audience. Our heroines overall came off as likable, if a little grating at times. Yeah, I ragged on them when they were committing less than noble acts. But again, that's only because I hold all of my superheroes' morality to high standards. Still, the story moved at a decent pace with the characters delivering exposition in smaller, more digestible portions, the humor was good, and overall, this was an entertaining start for the series.
Next time, we'll cover the show's second act, which spans from about episodes 19 to 35, and also talk about what's probably my favorite story arc of this season. Until then though, farewell for now, my friends.